boomers, by far the most selfish generation ever in America. Not my quote, somebody else's quote. And I thought, you know what? That's interesting. I feel like it's worth talking about. So that's exactly what we're going to do.
We laugh at the bill, but the numbers don't lie. Do the joke, do the mad moral financer. Moral financer.
All right, you guys, welcome back to the podcast of Archie's Briefings. I'm your host, Archie Branch. Of course, take the time to subscribe to the channel of Pocket Politics. Hit the notification bell so that way you guys are always up to date when new episodes are coming out and when my new Financial Frontier, the animated series I have, is released as well. That's why you hit the notification bell so that way you guys are always up to date when something new hits this channel. And of course, if you guys are interested in getting your numbers done and you want to see what you can actually do with the income you have coming in, subscribe to my Financial Tricorder, the world's first financial tricorder. There you'll be able to calculate your net debt to income ratios, and you will even be able to build out your zero-based budgets based off of how you receive your paychecks, either weekly or bi-weekly. So click the link in that description box. Subscribe today to the world's first financial tricorder, built by me. So definitely know I care about how your numbers turn out. It's accurate if you are truthful about it. All right, guys, so let's talk about this whole thing. Boomers being the worst generation, the most selfish generation to ever exist in America. I saw this guy's video. People are talking about it everywhere, and I felt like, you know what? Let me watch this. Let me see what he is saying. Some of it I found to be very true. Very true. I think it's a bit unfair to say that they are the worst and the most selfish generation to exist, mostly because I'm not convinced that millennials wouldn't have done the same darn thing if we were in their position, any more than I'm convinced that Gen Zers wouldn't have done the same thing. We seem to do a lot just for the almighty dollar. Come on, we're the generation of OnlyFans, okay? We're the generation who sells our behinds on social media, okay? We look for attention. We'll do anything for the attention and the monetary value. And so why should I think that we would be any different than the boomers if this is what we're willing to do today? So not really convinced in that regard. I don't think it's fair to call them the most selfish generation. However, with that said, I will say this. As it relates to being a millennial, yeah, we're the new old people, okay? So if you thought you were young, okay, understand the youngest of millennials, like myself, are 30, okay? We're not young people. We're not. We're the new old people. And I think we should just be okay with it. Now, we don't necessarily qualify for Social Security, okay? But we're not young either. And I look at Gen Zers and their response to how they viewed the millennial life. And it's both sad and hilarious at the same time. Gen Zers are looking at millennials like, yeah, nah, I don't want that to be my life. And it's quite obvious to me. Now, the accusation towards the boomers is that most of the wealth sits with the boomer generation, that boomers are being prioritized over younger generations, particularly millennials and Gen Zers, as it relates to the workforce. And while we're looking at the crisis of the cost of living, now a potential energy crisis specifically because of this conflict in Iran, and you're looking at all the economic policies passed in the previous year as to, you know, tax returns being garnished, paychecks being garnished, all of these things going towards student loan debt, welfare being cut like up the wazoo. I mean, a lot of these economic policies, which I support, are actually doing some financial harm to the American people. And now the exacerbation of energy costs is going to go up, which it's going to be bad. It's going to be quite concerning. And this is why young people are so concerned and they feel like they're being forgotten and left out. And that was definitely the case with millennials. And Gen Zers are looking at that like, yeah, no, I don't want that to be me. And they're not blaming the millennials. They're not looking at millennials like, oh, it's your fault why I can't get a job. It's not your fault why I am unable to achieve the American dream. They're going before us and going past the Gen Xers. They are looking at the boomers. And it's not because monkey see, monkey do. It is because the data is there. So before I go on my diatribe, I'm going to pull up this documentary, or at least a clip of what I've seen, of just a part of it, just so you guys can get an idea of just why this debate has not ended. This has been a conversation for quite some time. I've seen this conversation over the years. I felt like it was a bigger conversation during the Biden days, specifically because inflation was getting kind of crazy and they were blaming the boomers. I mean, my goodness, our country is being ran by old people and they're blaming them still. Like, and if you voted for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, you really shouldn't be in office right now. That's kind of what young people are saying. We've been saying it for over a decade. So let's go ahead and let's play this clip from this guy's documentary. It's quite interesting. His name is Damon Cassidy, and the name of his documentary, I have it here, baby boomers, the most selfish, he has in quotes, generation ever. So let's go ahead and let's run that clip now so you guys can see just more of this conversation. It's not a new take, I would say, but just more of it, right? Let's go ahead and let's run it, shall we?
According to the Federal Reserve, baby boomers have officially become the richest generation to ever live, holding over 51% of the nation's total wealth. And as emerging generations inherit a national debt set to grow by 63%.
Okay, before I let him finish, look at that, what it says at the bottom. By 2035, the nation's debt is estimated to total at least $55 trillion. But we should continue with the Iran conflict, right? For those of you in the comments who say, I got to support it, look at that number, 55 trillion. Yeah, okay, that's a good idea.
Within the next decade, a collapsing job market, record housing prices, and a cost of living crisis. It raises a question: why did the richest generation in history sell out the nation's future? While baby boomers came of age during an era when a part-time minimum wage job could cover the full cost of college tuition, lifelong careers were often secured by a firm handshake, and housing prices were so low that nearly half of all 27-year-olds owned a home. The reality is that this image of generational prosperity was never shared across all baby boomers. When looking at how the generation's $85 trillion in total wealth is actually distributed, a level that is structurally impossible for any other living generation to achieve, nearly 3/4 of it is held by just the top 10% within the generation, where the responsibility for the nation's economic trajectory and theft of its future truly resides.
Okay, so you heard that. I'm not going to play any more of it, but, if you guys want to watch it, I'll put the link in the description box so you guys can go ahead and watch the whole thing. But what is that guy saying? If we are choosing to believe what he is saying, then what he's saying is that the data shows that only 10% of the boomers actually benefited from the system itself. Like, that's what that means. That's what that means. And I've seen documentaries of, stories of the elderly who are living on the street, who are living impoverished, right? The majority of them, I would say, are not financially secure, not financially free, and that's a huge concern. Even when I look at my own parents, for example, they don't own their own homes. Like, they don't own a home. They're not paying a mortgage. They are renting. They do have jobs. And not jobs that are, really fulfilling their skill set that they've accumulated over years, but because they have bills to pay. Like, that's the reality when it comes to the elderly people when you're talking about the boomers. So I'm inclined to agree and believe the data that he's suggesting because I see it even in my own family, and maybe you guys are seeing the same things as well. It means that they didn't benefit from the system either. Now, based off of what I'm seeing in his documentary here is that it's not because the opportunity didn't exist. And I've showed you guys in previous stories where the elderly were pretty much saying that the only reason why they don't have more is because they were irresponsible. Not because the opportunity didn't exist, but simply because, number one, they were irresponsible, or number two, they were not financially informed. Like, they were not taught how to be responsible with their finances beyond get a job, pay your bills. Like, that's, that seems responsible enough to me, right? No, right? One guy, he was an 80-year-old man working as a substitute teacher, 80-year-old man working as a substitute teacher because he did not save his money. He took out stocks. He withdrew from his 401k. There were others that retired too early and they're not getting as much as they could have had they retired in their 70s and not in their early 60s to get more out of their Social Security. They didn't do long-term investment savings accounts. They didn't go for mutual funds. They withdrew from their 401ks. Like, they were just making a series of irresponsible decisions, and on top of that, they were not informed. And the guy, the 80-year-old man who was a substitute teacher, here's the thing. He got a degree in math. And he was not taught to be financially literate. And this is obviously a huge problem, I would say, with a lot of millennials, which is why we took on an obscene amount of debt outside of the student loan problem. But essentially, they don't have because they were either irresponsible or because information was withheld, not because the opportunity was scarce. And also in Damon's documentary here, you're seeing that there's obviously a cost of living crisis. I've seen documentaries and stories of the housing crisis, and it's only getting worse. Obviously, there's just a series of problems that we are seeing in America today, and it's just not working out for the young person. I'm going to come out of this, you guys, and I'll give you guys some more details about what I think about this, okay? So you guys, you see that when it comes to millennials and Gen Zers, that opportunity is incredibly scarce, okay? So when it says that 60% of millennials are living paycheck to paycheck, that they don't believe that they're going to be able to ever own homes, that Gen Zers are looking at millennials like they don't want that to be their lives, but not even they are finding opportunities for themselves, it really feels like the American dream is scarce and that we're majority of us living the American nightmare. And it does beg the question, can young Americans like Gen Zers and the new old Americans like millennials, can we be the average and obtain real financial wealth like we've seen with the boomers? The only reason why you don't have is because information was denied, which we don't have that excuse. We literally can just AI everything, Google everything. Information is free. The most valuable thing in a civilization, like a Class A civilization like ours, is information, okay? There is no reason why you can't be financially literate by tomorrow if you wanted to be, right? You could just go out there and get that information for free. So we don't have that excuse the way the boomers did. And it's because of it's because of their irresponsibility. It's more of an and or, right? And it's because of their irresponsibility. It's not because the opportunity was scarce. It's because you were irresponsible with the money you had. Today with millennials and Gen Zers, it's not just because we're irresponsible, which the numbers clearly show we've proven to be irresponsible. That's why all of this crazy debt in the first place, okay? We choose not to save. We chose not to invest. And then crisis hit. We saw this with COVID, and we realized just how important savings really were. Like, yeah, you'll learn about life the hard way if you don't get smart to begin with. But that's really what happened there. Now, I'd say that we're fortunate enough to have gone through that crisis while we were younger, because now we know crisis will strike, and you kind of want to be financially prepared for it in a way that the older generations really didn't, because now they're older. And they're elderly and they're receiving Social Security and they didn't save and they might not have invested if their job didn't give them a 401k. And the 401k is even a scam in that. So they weren't really looking beyond what they got from their jobs, which again is unfortunate. And young people don't have the excuse of just not knowing where to go, where to look to either DIY it or to hire a financial manager. Maybe you're going to a Ramsey financial coach or someone trained by Ramsey. Like there's no reason why you don't know how to be different. Unfortunately, it's because the opportunity is so scarce. We're asking ourselves, can I just be the average and just get the higher paying job so I can take on the mortgage? And if I pay down my debt, can I even have this? Like, is it even worth it? Like, that's what we're asking. And so when people are saying that boomers are the selfish generation, it really is because of this constant back and forth when they say millennials are just not working hard enough, that Gen Zers are just not working hard enough. It's because you're lazy. It's because you don't want to work for the man. Mind you, you're the generation that coined the phrase, the man. You're the hippie generation, for goodness sakes. Stick it to the man. That was your thing. For goodness sakes, there's a whole section in the history books about it. You coined the damn phrase. You didn't benefit from this system any more than we did, not because the opportunity was forced to be scarce for you or that it was made scarce, right? It was they deliberately withheld information so that way you couldn't become wealthy. And now this is your situation. Whereas as it relates to millennials and Gen Zers, not only would they like to withhold the information, which they just can't because it's almost impossible to keep it from us, the opportunity itself is scarce, where we can't just be the average, get the higher paying job, be responsible with our money, and invest and eventually own the asset that is the home. Like we can't just do that. Like if you had the opportunity that the boomers had when they were our age, plus the infinite access to the information, then every American should be thriving. And the only reason why you're not is because you're irresponsible, which is the best situation for a country to be in. It's not that you won't have poor people. It's that the poor people are only poor because it's a choice, not because it's forced upon them. And that's what this is looking like. Okay. That's what this looks like. So don't say to millennials and Gen Zers, it's because you're lazy and it's because you are not trying, that you don't have the work ethic, that you don't know your ass from your elbow, excuse my language. Like, don't come at me with the nonsense, okay? When you too were denied by the very system that has now made opportunity freaking scarce, okay? And that's going to take us into another clip, particularly one from Fox Business, where they are discussing what's happening in the market as relates to the job market between boomers and Gen Zers, as well as millennials, but really how this affects from Gen Zers into the millennial generation. So I'm going to show you guys that clip next, but after this. All right, you guys. So you guys know, like I said in previous videos, I am a narrative writer. I want you guys to take the time to click that link in the description box and head over to Afane Studios, where you guys will be able to watch the very first episode of Life Through a Lens, my soap opera parody, I would say more accurately, a soap opera parody of what's going on with Candace Owens, Erica Kirk, and Turning Point USA. This is very intriguing. It's interesting. It's right on the nose. Like, it's on the nose. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. There's no way you watch this and you don't see, yeah, no, that's Candace. That's Megyn Kelly. That is definitely Erica Kirk. Like, there's no way you don't watch this and think to yourself, that's exactly what this is. It's on the nose. It's a soap opera parody of what's going on in real life. And so I think you guys are definitely going to enjoy it. So click the link in the description box to the Afane studio and watch the very first episode of Life Through a Lens, written by yours truly. Okay? Of course, if you guys are interested in getting your numbers done and you want to be able to do this at an affordable rate, go ahead, click the link to the world's first financial tricorder. This is a system that I built out myself with the intention of respecting your privacy and making sure that no one, not even myself, has access to your financial data. I find that if you don't want to share your personal financial position with your mother, why would you want to share it with the banks? Okay. You cannot automatically be tracked to this platform via Google or Microsoft because you have to manually put in your emails. You cannot do any bank syncing. So the banks don't even have access to this information. And not even I have access to this information. As long as you decide to be honest, then the numbers will be accurate. Okay, so go ahead, click the link to the world's first financial tricorder built by, again, yours truly, where you guys will be able to calculate your net debt to income ratios and be able to build out a zero-based budget based off of how your paychecks come in, either weekly or bi-weekly. I think it's incredibly useful. I use it myself. And as someone who gets paid bi-weekly from her day job, when I tell you that it is useful, it is definitely useful. You'll also be able to track your progress, and you can download this information if you would like, just so you have that information off browser if you would like. I think it's your information. That's the point of the tricorder. You should be able to make better decisions for your finances based off of these recommendations. So go ahead, click the link in the description box today and subscribe to the world's first financial tricorder. All right, guys. So as I said before the break, I was going to show you guys another clip off of Fox Business. I think it's something that is worth talking about because this right here is why you have the animosity between boomers and the younger generations. Let's go ahead and let's run that clip next, shall we? All right, guys, so this is the clip here on Fox Business, the big money show. As you see here at the bottom, it says, Gen Z job crisis explodes as older workers take over the workforce. Here we go.
It is a growing divide in the labor market. Boomers holding on to their jobs longer, leaving little room left at the conference table for poor Gen Z. New data showing that hiring for workers 25 and under, it's actually down more than 45% since 2019. But for those 65 and older, it's up 80%. Companies say they want day one ready workers. That means, well, less training and fewer entry-level opportunities for young Americans.
I'm turning 64.
Jackie, day one ready.
Okay, so before I let her go on, let's just be clear about something. This poor Gen Zers, like, that just sounds so patronizing. I don't care for it at all. You know, poor Gen Z. Like, are you trying to be sarcastic? I feel like you're being sarcastic, and it's a little low key. It's a bit disrespectful, and I don't like how you coming after Gen Z. I don't really like it. I don't like it. I don't like how she was going after Gen Z.
So on the boomer angle, I think this is a function of that we're living better as Americans. We're living longer. We're living healthier. Most boomers that I know are not working because they can't retire. That's part of the narrative. I'm sure there are people out there that fit that description.
Yeah, I can agree with that. There are boomers who are doing that. Like my parents, for example, at least my dad, he's working and not working to his capacity, to his skill set, right? He's just not doing that. But he's the man of the house. He's got bills. There's responsibilities. Now, I'm sure he would love to work the way that he wants to work, just not working the way that he's working. I don't think that most boomers really want to retire. I don't think anybody really wants to retire from working altogether. I think they want to retire from industries that they've given their lives to, and they'd be more than okay with leaving. I think that would be okay, right? Like, I don't want to be a waitress and a hostess or even someone who's in the restaurant business for the rest of my years. But I would say that to not work at all, no, I think that's just innate. I think that's something that we do as humans, especially as Christians. We value work and being productive and contributing. And I think that's just something that we would do. So I do agree. They work not because they want to, but because they have to. Because if they could work the way they want to, they probably wouldn't be staying at the jobs that they're staying at. So I think that is fair enough. I'm going to fast forward a bit because I really want to get you to the part where the gentleman is talking. And that's really where the irritation came in, because she was making some sense. I'm going to come from her and go to the guy because he was irritating. The boomer in the room. Let's talk to the boomer in the room, okay?
Here's what I would say. There is something to be said for competence. and I'm not saying I'm not going to paint all Gen Zers and millennials with a broad brush, or kind of going to do this. But one of the good things about being a boomer is that we benefited from a very good education system. The schools, were yet to turn woke. We actually learned a lot of stuff. We actually were forced to write coherently and have some, even if you were, in my case, my brother's the flip side, liberal arts. My brother was math. He became a doctor. He's a PhD and an MD. I became a lowly journalist, ink stained wretch. But I had to know some I had to know some math. Like I took a lot of upper level math, took a ton of econ. He had to learn some English. He had to learn how to write, which he does. The Gen Zers, they don't have that. They take Africana studies, gender studies. They don't have the basics, and it shows. And that's why boomers are, and you're never going to get rid of me.
That's enough of that. So you already said Gen Zers and millennials don't have the basics because you went to woke propaganda camps. That's pretty much what he's saying, that we're not smart enough to do the jobs, and this is why boomers are being more valued over the young Americans. And this was a trend that you saw happening in 2019. That was a little under a decade ago. I was in my early 20s at the time. Now, I'm not saying that the schools weren't woke. And I'm not saying that there isn't even a legitimate argument that, just there are some things that millennials may not know that the boomers did, but like that's, I would say, irrelevant when you have modern technology to assist in certain things. Like they're just things that I don't need to know how to do because I have the tech to do it. And I think Gen Zers are obviously they have AI. Gen Alpha has AI, and that is a question that we should ask: just how significant should modern technology be in our just everyday lives, even in our professional lives? Just how much of it should it play a role in our everyday lives? That's not our fault, okay? That's just how it is. And understand something. Like there were just certain things you couldn't do. Like you could not get a certain job if you didn't know how to do math. Like I couldn't sell Broadway tickets if I didn't know how to do math. What do you mean we don't have the basics? My dude, what are you talking about here? Like, are you kidding me? There are certain computer skills that one needs to have. You learned that in school. Gen Zers learned how to work computers and laptops. My goodness. Are you kidding me? Like they don't have the basics. Are you kidding me? Like it's just so darn disrespectful. I'm going to come out of this and I'm going to give you my full input on this video and then just sum everything up for you. Okay, you guys? Go ahead and let's do that now. All right, you guys. So you saw that, you heard that. You clearly can see just the ridiculousness of all of this, right? I mean, again, when you sit here and say things like that about young people, about millennials, which are the new old people, and about Gen Zers, that we're going to talk about how sorry we feel for the Gen Zers and how sorry we feel for the millennials, and that the millennials and the Gen Zers, because they went to woke camps in America, that they don't have the basics to do these jobs. You can sit here and be disrespectful all you want, but how do you explain the fact that not even the majority of your darn generation was able to benefit from the opportunities that existed? Because by design, intentionally, you were all denied, not all, but enough of you were denied opportunity information. The information that would get you the opportunities, for goodness sakes. Most I see of elderly online are saying how much debt they have, how they were not able to own the home, or how they lost the home, okay, because they were not smart about their money or because they were not told how to be financially literate, simply because that information was deliberately, by design, withheld from them. So you were treated like trash by the same institutions that are treating us like trash, only this time opportunities are scarce, okay? What hasn't changed is the institutions are not trustworthy, okay? Not trustworthy, worth a darn, and human irresponsibility, or I should say more accurately, American irresponsibility. Those two things haven't changed. What has changed is opportunity being available to the American people. Opportunity is scarce today. Young people have a hard time finding jobs where they can work and own the home. Can you be the average today and achieve the home? And most Americans that are millennials and Gen Zers are realizing, I'm feeling like syndrome of The Incredibles might have been right. Everybody has to be super today. And when everyone's super, no one will be. You can't be the average of yesteryear anymore, where you can just get the good paying job, okay, pay off a mortgage and own the home. In order to have such opportunities, you're going to have to get creative. I now have to have the day job and a side hustle. I now have to go from working what would have been anywhere between just 40 hours a week to now possibly 60 to 80 hours a week if I'm going to have the same opportunities that the boomers had. This notion that we don't work hard when the numbers are coming back that Gen Zers and millennials are actually working longer than the boomers did. I mean, no wonder the Gen Zers look older than the dang millennials, at least is because, look, We worked hard, but we splurged. Like, we splurged. I came into money and I splurged. I was not responsible with my money at all. This is why I speak about finances and personal finances. I was not responsible. I think this is why so many millennials look younger than Gen Zers, because we splurged. Gen Zers, they make what little money they make, and they're not trying to spend it on nothing. Like, I don't know. Should I go on vacation? I don't even know if I want to go to Mexico. I don't even know if I want to go to the bar. I don't even know if I want to do XYZ, because can I really afford to do so? Like, they're so riddled with anxiety because jobs are not available, okay? The cost of living is increasing, okay? There's a crisis in that. Millennials don't even know if they're going to be able to own homes, okay? They're scared about that. Reality. The same institutions that denied you the information so that way the majority of you would be able to own homes and have wealth, because it seems like the wealth is mostly sitting with only 10% of the boomers, is the same darn institutions that have created a scarce environment where homes are not affordable and debt is available to everybody. Now, if you want us to stop blaming you, stop calling us lazy. Stop saying that we don't want to do nothing. Stop saying that we don't have goals. Stop saying that we're not trying. Instead of sitting here pointing the finger at each other, we really should be pointing at the very institution that denied you, is denying us. Point the finger at the Fed, because that's what it should be pointed at. It should be pointed at them. Stop saying millennials and Gen Zers are lazy, okay? And we'll stop calling you the selfish generation. We will stop saying that you are the worst, the selfish generation to ever exist in America. If you would actually point the finger and say, yeah, they dangled debt and opportunity that would cost the future generations, and we took advantage of those opportunities. It is not just because of your irresponsibility. It is not because you are lazy and without a drive, young people. Like, if you're not 60, you're young to them, which I get. It makes sense. But ultimately, instead of sitting here saying that it's because young people are lazy and they're not trying to work hard enough, we would stop saying you're selfish. Well, I don't say that, but I do see millennials and Gen Zers saying you're selfish and that you destroyed America and that you ruined opportunity for young Americans, and that Gen Zers don't want to live like millennials, where they splurge and then wake up one day and realize they are unprepared financially for when crisis strikes. Like, they're not blaming millennials because they look at our lives and say, yeah, nah, I want the complete opposite of that. And they blame you for that. They blame boomers for that. Now, I would rather we stop blaming each other and point the finger the way G. Edward Griffin does and say, yeah, nah, it's not either of us. It's because of the Fed. They deliberately withheld information from you. They deliberately created a system that only a certain many or few would be able to benefit from. And now we live in a time of scarcity, and we're asking the question of whether or not scarcity of opportunity with this working system or not working system of the 9 to 5 is something that can continue. Is this sufficient? And from the looks of it, the answer is no. And that's what Gen Zers and millennials are simply trying to point out. And if boomers could look at their own numbers as a generation and look at what millennials and Gen Zers are saying objectively, then there is no reason why the lot of us are not looking at the Fed like they are the problem and wondering, is there a way where we can maintain being the average to obtain ownership? Or do we all have to go out here and become superheroes like Mr. Incredible so that way we can achieve the goal? Because now it's feeling like in order for me to have ownership, I have to be the exceptional. And that would mean having the day job and having my own business. And I think that's a question that we are asking as young Americans, particularly Gen Zers and millennials, because we've been doing it, we are doing it. And I don't think it's so exceptional anymore, because what was exceptional is now the new average. That's why I'm doing it, right? Girl needs to make extra income. And I genuinely enjoy doing what I do, and I do want to make money out of it. But I don't believe in owning this big business where I have a bunch of employees. Like, I don't want to be a boss. I really don't. I really don't want to be a boss. I like doing what I do. I like selling a subscription to my financial tricorder, which you guys should definitely do, okay? I like encouraging people to go and watch the content on a Fane Studio, which you guys should definitely do. And I like doing my podcast, which you guys should definitely subscribe to the channel so you can get more of it. I like the idea that I can bring in an extra income doing the things that I love doing. And I have a day job to help pay the bills, because until this does what it's supposed to do, if it can, well, that's what I'm going to do. I don't think that has to be so exceptional. And it's okay if somebody doesn't want to do that and they just want to have their day job. The problem, however, is that it doesn't seem like one can just have the day job to have that ownership. And so that's what Gen Zers and millennials are saying. And I don't think it's fair to criticize and saying that it's because they're lazy, because we're lazy, because we don't have the basics, according to Fox Business, that a-hole. Oh, I'm going to Davos. I'm going to the World Economic Forum. You need the very damn institution that says, oh, nothing and be happy. The very institution that wants to continue to create scarcity in our country and around the globe. And I'm supposed to look at you like you're the moral compass for young Americans, for Americans, point blank, period. Are you kidding me? Like, nonsense. Absolute nonsense. So you guys get in the comment section to let me know. Do you agree with me on this one? Do you think that we should stop pointing the finger at each other and start focusing on the question here? Can Americans be the average and still obtain ownership? Or are we just going to have to go and be the exceptional, which is what seems to be the case? I think Gen Zers and millennials are onto something. And frankly, I think boomers should get on board with that. This is not about pushing you out of the system. This is about the lot of us saying what's wrong with the system and making improvements so we all can benefit from it. I think that's how that should go. So you guys let me know. Get in the comment sections. Of course, take the time to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell so that you guys are always up to date when Archie's Briefings is released. And of course, when the episodes of The Financial Frontier, that is my animated financial series that comes out every Friday. You guys should definitely check that out as well. Get in the comments, like this video, share this video, the whole nine. I love you guys. God bless. And of course, because it's me, Kepla.